We have come to the landmark 880 Lakeshore Drive today. 880 and 860 are the twin buildings by Mies van der Rohe right on Lakeshore Drive. This is Vladimir Radutny, who is both the seller of a unit and the architect who designed the interior we're going to see. And Vladimir, it's got to be, as an architect, you've got to be pleased to live here because these are landmark buildings.
Absolutely. This is one of the first steel and glass buildings built in the world. This is one of Mies van der Rohe's landmark buildings. A building that was designed and then repeated over and over, but I don't think as successfully.
Yeah.
And the view of the lake, the detailing of the lobbies, the curtain wall is something very unique to the city and to the world.
That's great. Let's go up and see what you've done with your unit.
Absolutely.
Great. All right, so we've come to the 20th floor.
Yep.
We're going to see your unit, and you look
West.
West to the city.
Direct west view.
Great.
It's a G tier.
Oh, wow. Now, I think you told me this was originally a one-bedroom. It still is a one-bedroom,
Yeah.
but it's a slightly different floor plan.
Yeah, it's a slightly different configuration where the bathroom is modified slightly and the bedroom is opened up to the living room with a new glass partition.
And while we're looking at the glass partition and everything else, we can point out not only did you rearrange the floor plan, bring in some different detailing, but you actually did a lot of the physical labor.
Yes,
Right?
we did quite a bit of work ourselves. We had to hire professionals to do the electrical and plumbing.
But then, for instance, you yourself built this wooden glass partition between the bedroom and living area?
Yes, it was built in pieces and then assembled with a glazing contractor. He came in and just put the glass panels in with the glass doors. But
Wow. And that's probably one of the places to start talking about the look you were going for here. We know the Miesian look, of course, is open and there's the sliding panel concept and that sort of thing. But what were you going for here in particular?
I think the major idea was to really feel the perimeter of the space and to understand the boundaries of what you own, from the north wall to the south wall, and separate a little bit away from the existing elements like the columns, where you start to see the difference between the column and the glass door, where prior to this there was a wall that just came off of the column and you really didn't understand that there was a column in the space.
And the columns are one of the hallmarks of this building.
Exactly. The columns is what makes this building more unique because it's a free plan where they are the load-bearing elements and you can reconfigure everything within as much as you want.
Oh, that's terrific. You also, speaking of walls, there was a wall here between the kitchen and the living area?
Actually, the track lighting kind of is reminiscent of where the wall used to be. So this line is actually where the old partition existed.
So we had this little teeny kitchen.
You had this little teeny kitchen that was enclosed from the living space, and you had very little natural light coming into the kitchen.
So there was nothing, not even like a pass-through or anything?
No pass-through, just a wall.
So you were like in a cave when you're in the kitchen.
It was sort of like a cave, and we kind of knew that was something that needed to change.
The nice thing about this island is that it has some motion of its own. It's got the tile that picks up the running bond on the backsplash as well as on the floor.
Exactly.
But this does a couple of other things.
Well, the tile kind of defines the prep area. So this ends up being the area that is intended to be used as a prep zone, where the wood area ends up being kind of the eating area. So
we didn't mention when we came in that there's there's an office or workspace back here, and then you've got the main living area divided into two rooms, really a living and a sitting or dining area. But we could also open this out and make it one large living space, right?
Yes. The nice thing about the G tier, which is the tier that's not a corner, it's kind of sandwiched in between the two corners. You have this gracious entry foyer, which you can use as an office space. The other units tend to be a lot narrower and smaller, and does not allow you to have this other function introduced
You
within.
just come in through a hallway rather than this space?
Exactly, and sometimes people use it as a dining area, but we felt an office is a little bit more appropriate. It's kind of tucked away, and things that tend to happen on the desk is a little bit more hidden.
We mentioned the running bond on the backsplash, but what's cool is you've got the slate floor, and we'll talk about the textured versus flat in a minute, but the slate floor has this running bond pattern. The wall, the white panels on the wall have it, or has it, that wall does. So you've sort of made the whole thing feel like one continuous surface, haven't you?
Yeah, the idea is came from the contextual surrounding, looking at the exterior of the building, seeing the brick pattern on some of the exterior of the walls.
Of course.
And you start to pick up on those moves and introduce them into your space, but in a slightly different scale. And try to stay consistent within the palette and modifying a little bit, whether it's a tile on the wall, whether it's a MDF panel hung in the living room, or it's a flooring material, but not trying to introduce newer elements, but try to stay as local as possible.
So you've got curtains for the closets.
Yep.
Rather than sliding doors, is there a reason? Is that a space saver?
Well, we opted out for curtains primarily because it eliminates the tracks that existed on the floor. So instead of having these frames and hardware that tend to come together with having doors, having curtains lightens it up a little bit and softens up the space.
So the floor slides right into the kitchen.
Exactly. Because
and the same thing going between the two rooms. You mentioned taking out the thresholds between the rooms.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Really nice. And then this partition, it looks as if we really do have privacy here in the bedroom. In a one bedroom, you don't need too much privacy, but I mean, this is closed off from the living room.
It does. I think it provides plenty of privacy. I think that having the plants as kind of the buffer at the ground reduces the privacy a little, but I think it's the type of privacy you're not necessarily are in need of because it's something that happens below the knee level.
You probably know your way around at night. I think I would bump into this in the middle of the night, and that would be kind of uncomfortable.
It has happened a few times.
Let's talk about this view. This is, the city, of course, looked very different from this when Mies van der Rohe built these buildings. But you mentioned from here, I can see, well, I guess actually it's better to do this from the living room, but you can see the Hancock, Trump, and the Sears Tower. We've got a better view from the living room of the Sears Tower.
Yeah, you have the trio of the Skidmore and Zamero projects that are seen from our unit. The two black buildings and the new Trump, the silver building that they introduced to the city. Prior to it, I can't imagine what the views were like, especially with the sun setting, not having any protection from the sun on the west. But now you get these glimpses of pockets of light that happen throughout the day.
And then the one last thing we ought to mention, you pointed this out, the view will retain this depth because the building owns the air rights to this parking below, right?
Exactly.
So we're always going to have this space between this unit and whatever we're looking at. So then you did more of this space-saving work in the bathroom. The bathroom, I mean, there's not much you can do. You have a certain number of square feet based on the sort of lifestyle that prevailed when Mies built, right? But you've done a few things.
The original wall stopped where the new sink picks up, and we removed that wall and created these linen zones, but also introduced a sink, hers and his sink, making this a slightly bigger bathroom, but also we've tried to make it appear bigger by creating these recesses within the walls. So instead of having towels and towel bars protruding into the space, they're actually recessed in, making this feel a little bit more spacious.
And then we talked about the work you did. Did you create this plywood double vanity?
Yes, I did. This
is really nice.
This was made out of one sheet of plywood.
Really?
And the idea was that it acts also as a binding element of a position of the toilet that couldn't really be relocated.
Oh,
and
nice.
also gives a little bit more of depth as having these solid pieces of vanities that exist. They tend to feel a little bit more lighter in the area.
Oh, yeah. Oh, great. So you've really, everywhere you can, you've sort of opened it and lightened it.
Yeah,
right?
another example of having something recessed into the wall. We have this recessed medicine cabinet that kind of gets tucked away and doesn't feel like it's even.
Oh, right. I would have thought it was a flush mirror like this. Oh, wow. Wow. Nice job.
Thank you.
Lots of great little details.